Hi there, everybody. My name is Mr. Tim. Welcome back to our virtual reality story times. Today, I will be telling you an oral story time. That means we won't be using a book or any other materials other than visual and audio aids. So I will be telling you the story in a special world. This is the story of a mountain in Colorado named Bison Peak. I myself am a traveler, a wanderer. I may have a home, but an open trail is truly where I belong. Today, I will tell you the story of a mountain that has tried to kill me on more than one occasion. Maybe someday I'll tell you those other stories, but today I'll tell you the story of how Bison Peak tried to kill my best friend Cody and myself, and how it saved us. Now, Cody and I know what we are doing in the mountains, and on a camping trip, we decided the following day we would hike at least 20 miles. So, we prepared our packs and snacks and water. Normally, I don't bring my water filters on just a day trip, but something told me to pack them. Little did I know that that was potentially a life-saving decision. The morning came, and after a hearty breakfast, Cody and I made for the trail. We set a hearty pace, and after 2 hours, we were nearly 10 miles into our hike. We had traveled through a long valley bordered with huge mountains, and it had a small creek that zigzagged through the valley. We enjoyed a small snack next to some massive boulders that created a small outcropping in the middle of the valley. The fun truly began when we started our 3,000-foot ascent to Bison Peak, a place I had been a few times, but had never been able to enjoy for one disaster or another. We made the decision to complete the full loop, and with that, we sealed our fate. Our 20-mile hike had become, little to our knowledge, a 33-mile trek. Still 2 miles from the peak, we were stopped by a fellow traveler. "There's a storm rolling in. You think I can camp off yonder?" he asked, pointing behind us. That was where we had filled our water with my water filters. We had run out of water a few hours before. But as he pointed, his wrist began to beep. He looked down. Thunderstorm warning. At this, Cody and my hearts dropped. We were not yet to the peak, but lightning could pose a serious threat. At this point, we had been hiking for nearly 8 hours and had traveled nearly 23 miles and still had over 10 miles to go. We thanked the traveler and he hurried off to find his shelter. Cody and I took a deep breath and began a slight jog across the peak. "The clouds are a few miles away, but lightning can strike us from where they're at," Cody shouted, and we ran even faster until we reached the protection of the trees. We had made it to safety. Now, we just needed to hike a little under 10 more miles to our camp. I hear that some people enjoy going down a mountain or say that it's easier than going up the mountain, but not when you are tired. It took everything inside of Cody and I not to simply fall down the mountain and let ourselves be pulled down by gravity. After a few miles, the clouds had darkened and the sun had set, but in the distance, we saw the glow of a campfire and heard someone playing a guitar. We hurried to the campfire, and we saw an old man sitting next to it, playing the same tune over and over and over. We approached him and asked for a small snack. "Ain't got a thing in the tent?" I asked him how close to the campsite we were. "Dunno, ain't never been there." Frustrated, I asked if we could sit by the fire and rest. "Tent leaks and we got no extra stools. My wife and me sleeps on the dry spot and use the only stools." "Well, why don't you fix the tent and pull up a stump?" I asked. "Can't mend the tent on a rainy day, and I need the stumps for the fire." The whole time, the old man continued to play the same tune over and over. I was exhausted at this point, and I have to admit that I snapped. "Well, why don't you finish that dang tune?" He looked up and he smiled. "Can't get the turn of the tune." Now, Cody recognized the tune and saw my frustration, so he snatched the guitar and finished the song. "Stranger," said the man, "you grab yourself a stump and sit down. Sal, cut a hunk out of that deer and cook it. Get the water." He turned to Cody. "You just play away, stranger. Tonight, you sleep on the dry spot." Now, Cody and I didn't stay the night. After an hour or so, we felt fully rested and went to our campsite. We did the math and figured out we had been hiking for nearly 13 hours and had hiked 33 miles. The following morning, after we rested, we went to find the man and pay him back in some way. But when we arrived to where his campsite should have been, there wasn't a trace of him, his wife, a deer, the fire, nothing. Cody and I looked at each other. Did we imagine it all? Did Bison Peak save us? So that is a fun story that is based some parts off of a real life event and some parts off of a legend from Arkansas. Of course, the parts that are from the legend are the old man at the end of the trail that was playing a song on the guitar that we had to finish the song for so that he would help us out with food and water and things like that. We encountered a small group of people at the end of the trail that offered us some water, but at that point we were so close to our campsite that we didn't even stop. We just kept going. We thanked them and just kept walking. Otherwise, Cody and I, my friend, did go on a 20-mile hike that turned into a 33-mile trek. It was extremely exhausting. There was a massive thunderstorm and we had to run across the peak of the mountain. I had to fill up our water bottles multiple times from rivers with my water filters, which I usually don't bring on day trips, but now I definitely do always bring on day trips with me. So what lessons can we learn from this story? Well, there's a few lessons. First of all, if you're going out into nature, bring a friend. Don't go alone unless you are an absolute expert, as in you have been trained by people to go out by yourself and you have all the supplies. Otherwise, bring a friend. Also, be prepared, right? My water was there to help us out. The lesson I learned personally from living through this experience was to continue to persevere. There were many times where Cody and I weren't sure if we could keep going. Our legs were so wobbly and we had been hiking for over 12 hours and it looked like we still had so much to go, and every single time we turned there was just more trail, more uphill. It was very difficult, but we learned to just put your head down, have a good friend, sing some songs, and just get through the hard situation. And it's something that I've taken into my personal life as well. Otherwise, the lesson we can learn from the legend from Arkansas that I added to this story in Colorado is to be generous and to be kind to those around you. Of course, that old man wasn't initially generous, but Cody was patient and he was kind to him and showed him the song that he was trying to think of. And so he shared food and water with us and helped us get back to our trail. I hope you all enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed making it, and I hope to see you all very soon in the next story time. Goodbye, friends!